Get you a guy who loves you most ardently. But in all seriousness though, if I don't bewitch you body and soul, I don't want it. Hey guys, I'm Ava and this is WWM Productions. If you're new here, welcome. I hope you enjoy your stay. If you do, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're returning, thank you so much. We love having you. I'll admit it, I have a soft spot for romance movies. Maybe not all of them. I'm looking at you after. But that ushy, gushy, sweet stuff has a special place in my heart. The main problem with the genre, though, is when gushy turns to cheesy. You know, when the dialogue is trite, or the characters are stereotypes, or the plot is more predictable than the music in a department store during the holiday season. There is a lot that can make romance movies suck, but that's not what this video is about. Today, I want to talk about the movie Pride and Prejudice and why it is what I currently consider to be the best romance movie. I'll admit, I discovered this movie through TikTok, but there is no but. I discovered this movie through TikTok. It's great though, so I'm going to talk about it. A few disclaimers first. Obviously, if you haven't seen this movie before, please do. If you like romance, it's great. Don't spoil it for yourself. Secondly, there are a lot of romance movies that I've heard are awesome that I have not had the opportunity to see. So obviously, I'm not the end-all be-all when it comes to critiquing the entire romance genre. However, if you think of any movies that can top Pride and Prejudice in my heart, please leave your recommendations in the comment section below. Finally, for the purposes of this video, I am only considering the 2004 version of Pride and Prejudice. I am not looking at the book or any other adaptations of the story. With all that said, let's talk. First off, over the course of the movie, we see 5 examples of what a couple can look like. This gives the movie the opportunity to show off romance on several different levels. And first, we see Mr. and Mrs. Bennet. Now, we don't see a lot of them being romantic, but we do get to see them being parents. While Mrs. Bennet is pushing for the girls to marry for the benefit of the family, Mr. Bennet insists that they marry for their own happiness. While this does lead to them having some disagreements, and they do have very different personalities, they end up complementing each other perfectly. When Mr. Collins, for instance, proposes to Elizabeth, Mrs. Bennet wants them to get married for the strategy of the marriage. Mr. Bennet, on the other hand, directly contradicts her. Sure, it upsets Mrs. Bennet, but neither of them raise their voices or raise their hands at each other. They are a well-balanced couple who act as well-balanced parents and raise 5 wonderful children. Are they perfect? No. Do they need to be? No. Their relationship is strong many years after courtship is over, and we don't need any cheese to see that. Another one of the couples that we get to see in this movie is Lydia and Mr. Wickham. This pairing is also not the main focus of the movie, but it does show a lot about the nature of infatuation and naivety when it comes to making lifelong decisions with your heart at such a young age. I know there are probably many accounts of lasting romance blossoming from one's youth, but there is a reason why marriage is illegal for children nowadays. From the story, we learn that Mr. Wickham is a deadbeat gambler who messes with girls' hearts. We also learn that Lydia is the youngest Miss Bennet, and she swoons over anyone in a uniform. This consequently leads to the catastrophic event of Lydia and Mr. Wickham's elopement and then marriage. Of course, the audience knows what's wrong with this picture, as does Elizabeth, Mr. Darcy, and Mr. Bennet, even though he doesn't know Mr. Wickham's whole story. Still, it is fairly clear that Lydia is more in love with the idea of marriage than anything else. She repeatedly talks about her new life as a married woman, but not about anything of substance, about her love for Mr. Wickham, just that she does love him. We even see him force her to sit down in the carriage as they're leaving the Bennet house. He grabs her and pulls her back into her seat, and it's fair to assume that this is not the first such incident that happened since they got together, but Lydia chooses to ignore it. She is young and doesn't understand the gravity of her situation, and he is a wicked man who's trying to take advantage of a child. This is not love, and the movie makes that very clear. Then there's the case of Mr. Collins and Miss Lucas, marriage by necessity. From the beginning of the story, Mr. Collins is painted as a very awkward, uncharming kind of man who is looking to marry because Lady Catherine told him to. And Miss Lucas, though a wonderful girl, is not as outwardly glamorous as the other girls and is running out of time to find a proper match. Thus, the two end up together. What I like about this couple is that though their relationship isn't built on romance, neither of the two seem unhappy with the union. Sure, maybe there isn't that deep, intimate connection between them like you get with some of the other characters. There's that mutual respect between the two that they didn't get from anyone else. It's not the most romantic story, but they're both happy with it, and that's what matters. Especially when compared with a couple like Lydia and Wickham. Maybe neither of the couples came together through everlasting bonds of true love, but at least Mr. Collins and Miss Lucas were able to build a happy home. Now, let's get to the two main couples. The juiciest love stories of the whole movie, starting with Mr. Bingley and Jane Bennet. Obviously, their true connection is made clear from the beginning of the movie. They make each other happy, but what I think stands out about this couple is the way that they behave after their separation. The story doesn't depict Jane as this inconsolable mess who can't survive without her man. In fact, it does quite the opposite. Sure, she's sad about Mr. Bingley's absence, and sure, she still cares about him, but is she absolutely destroyed? No. She is a perfectly functional human being without Mr. Bingley. Also, Mr. Bingley himself recognizes that what he did was wrong, and he owns up to that. He's also shown as being kind of awkward and unconfident, and I love that. Way too often are male love interests portrayed as these overly glamorized, smooth-talking, self-confident players who are only vulnerable when they're changed forever by that special girl, or they don't even change and it's all just a formality thrown into the plot to give the characters more opportunities to use puppy dog eyes. There's a lot of toxic masculinity pushed into romance movies, or just movies in general, and you don't really get that from this story. I find Mr. Bingley way more endearing because of it too. The last couple I'm going to talk to you about, and certainly the most important to the story, is Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. First off, I feel like these two characters are what every set of romance couples are intended to be lately. You have the spunky, intelligent, not like other girls female lead, and then the brooding and mysterious, not like other boys male lead. The main difference between these stereotypes and these characters are that Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy are way less annoying. For instance, Elizabeth Bennet I wouldn't say fits perfectly into the not like other girls stereotype. She's just an individual, and same goes for Mr. Darcy. Both of them have quirks and unique traits that make them different, but that's just because they're charismatic, well-written, well-developed characters, and that's what makes them stand out. Another thing I like about how these characters are written is that neither of them is the villain in the relationship. You can't blame their troubles or their triumphs on either one person. They both have issues when it comes to love, and they both grow through it together. Also, Elizabeth Bennet, just like her sister, can function perfectly well with or without her man, and she can certainly hold her own when Mr. Darcy is being cold. Still, that doesn't mean that she doesn't love him more than anything else in the world, it just takes her a while to accept it. Then, like Mr. Bingley, Mr. Darcy also struggles with romancing Miss Bennet. This movie does not shy away from the fact that Mr. Darcy struggles with being social, and he's awkward in uncomfortable situations. That's great! That's human! I don't want to watch the love story of some guy whose only character flaw is moody sometimes. Mr. Darcy is emotional and thoughtful, and the way he talks to Elizabeth would make anybody swoon. It just takes him a little while to get to that point. I want to root for this couple because they are human, and they help each other, and they truly care about each other, and you can tell. A little bit more about the character that is Mr. Darcy, though. When I first saw this movie and he made his first appearance, I didn't find him that attractive, but as the movie went on and we got more from his character, just the way he spoke and behaved and grew made him go from like here to like there. That's how character development should be, though. You shouldn't fall in love with a character just because they picked a pretty actor. That's not how it works in the real world, and that's not how it should work in the fictional world. This movie, though gorgeous in aesthetic and location and everything, was very not glamorized. Of course, I don't mean that the members of the cast weren't beautiful, but they didn't look overly done up or fake or anything. They looked like real people, not supermodels, which I appreciated. Now, Pride and Prejudice is uber famous. Practically everyone has at least heard of it, and other romance stories use it as a model, but many still fall very short. For instance, the movie After. I despise the movie After. Like, don't you dare bring up Elizabeth Bennet, Harden. No matter how similar you think Tessa is to our Miss Bennet, Elizabeth would never give you the time of day, let alone the 1 hour and 45-minute runtime you got from Tessa. I don't care if you don't believe in love, and maybe Mr. Darcy struggled with it a little too, but he's not a jerk. He doesn't essentially emotionally manipulate Elizabeth, and he respects and treats her like a human. Can I say the same for you? No, I cannot. So get your Wattpad butt out of here with all your desperate attempts to be the amazingness that is Pride and Prejudice, okay? Believe me, I wish that the teen romance dramas that have been coming out on Netflix or are coming out in theaters or wherever were this good. And I fully believe that they can be, but they can't do that by following the same tropes that worked for other movies. They should use Pride and Prejudice as a model of how a romance story should be original and feel human and have depth. It should not be used as a plot or set of characters to mirror or copy or adapt. Be original, be spectacular, don't be Harry Styles fanfiction. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you agree with my thoughts? Do you like this movie as much as I do? Do you have recommendations of movies that you think can top it? Drop a like and comment, and make sure to check out the WWM Productions podcast. We post a new video here every Sunday and a new episode of the podcast every Wednesday. So subscribe to make sure you're not missing out. Thanks for watching, you guys. I hope to see you next time. Bye!